this, obviously. Nothing like a good cup of soup in the morning. Oh, what a good idea that is. So, today I want to talk about words. And the reason I would like to do that, and I think it's kind of funny that we talk about words, don't you? Uh, Although I suppose we also sing and dance and whatnot, paint. Anyway, the thing about words is that I find ironic, among all the many things that I find ironic, is that we take great pride. We're very smug about the fact that we can use them, that we came up with them, that we can exchange them with each other. And there's all different kinds of words and all different kinds of languages, and we're terribly clever. And half the time we don't make any sense. Half the time we use the wrong ones. Half the time, speaking of having the time, we're in so big a hurry. We're such a hurry that we, good morning, Freddie. How are you? We are in such a hurry that we don't take the time to use the right words, to use the better words, to aim for clarity right out of the gate. We just open our mouths and allow whatever was sitting in there to fling itself out into the ether, and then watch in fascination as everybody looks hopelessly confused or offended or determined to go off and come back and smack you with a fish. And I can't get my head around the fact that we have this ability and we underutilize it. We don't respect it. We don't honor it. The image that I posted this morning, I found this adorable picture of this little girl dressed for Halloween, and she was dressed as a book fairy, and the entire back of her was a book, and the way they had folded all the pages out looked like fairy wings, and she had a wand and her hair was up, and she's adorable just from the back. And I thought, yeah, we need a word fairy. I'm not running for that office, but we definitely need word fairies, because so many times I overhear people saying, well, what did you mean by that? And the other person saying, what do you mean? What did I mean? You know perfectly well what I meant. Well, no, I didn't. And now they've just taken a really good 60 seconds to have no conversation of any kind that accomplished anything. They're pointing and yelling at each other, and none of it makes any sense because someone used a word either incorrectly or with not enough clarity, and the other person didn't understand. And for some reason, they took offense. Something triggered something. And now the two of them are yelling at each other. And they're wasting all that time, and they're filling the air with all that toxic, negative stuff. And, everybody walks away in a bad mood, when all they needed to do was saying, I'm sorry, I didn't quite grasp what you're saying there. And the other person can say, oh, terribly sorry, what I meant was blah, blah. So words are weapons if we choose to have them be that. But they are primarily, fundamentally supposed to be the way we connect. The way we, if I know what a word means and you know the same definition of the word, then when I say that word and you hear me say that word, we are sharing the same thought. Magic, right? Magic. If I say the word and you don't have the same definition, the utmost damned astonishment. And this happened to me. The reason I'm holding up the can of soup, by the way, is that I'm looking at the words on the can, because, again, clarity. No, there were many people who designed all the stuff that's written in the tiny print here. One of them being, how much is in here? How much is in here? When we go and get a can, we're in the shopping thing, and we go and we say, oh, this one is so much, and that one's only half price. Okay, but it's smaller. So how much smaller? Like, if this is 200 of whatevers and that one's only 75 of whatevers, well, obviously it should be cheaper because there's not as much stuff in the container, right? And so the words are supposed to give us understanding, grasp, cause, effect. If we're not paying attention, we say, look, I got this. It was only, yeah, but it's half the size. What? Oh, gosh, I didn't notice. I wasn't paying attention. You weren't paying attention. It was your job to go to the store and get the food. You went and as you walked in the store, you opted out. Your brain went someplace else and you were on autopilot when you picked up stuff. You found the thing that looks like what you want, right? And you said, oh, good, there. Oh, that one's $1 and that one's, 50 cents. I'll take the 50-cent one. But you didn't take the time to look at all the stuff that teaches us what we need to know in order to make a good decision. And oh, by the way, what's on the can? It's really kind of interesting. On the front, it says 284 milliliters. I'm old school. I have no idea what a liter is. I mean, I do, sort of. So a million of them? No. See, that's a really small can to be holding 1,000,000 liters of anything. So it's not, obviously. It's a small fraction of a liter. Okay. Math wasn't my best subject. That's mom worthy, isn't it? That's mom worthy. That should have been in a sketch. Lance, oh my goodness, look, dear, I was able to get 1,000,000 liters of soup and it was only. Can you picture Lancelot? Massive eye roll, falls backwards off the chair. Yeah, so anyway, it says milliliters on the front, but then on the back, on the side, it says half a cup. Okay, so half a cup is what? Right. Good morning. It says half a cup. Okay, so that's ounces. Okay, so ounces are over here, and liters and millions of liters and teeny weeny liters are over there. Why aren't they just using like consistent language? Why do I have to go and get a thing and look it up and how many ounces are in a cup and how many? Why do I have to do that? Well, the person writing this assumes that you know all of this because they've been doing this so long. They can't imagine people who don't do this. There's a thing I say quite often to people when I'm coaching them, that we learn a thing. We start with zero. We start like this, and then we gradually learn stuff. And as we move along the path, I'm a Campbell soup man myself. Progressive soup tastes like dirty dishwater. Thank you, Freddie. I'll keep that in mind. Gosh, I can't remember the last time I've had dirty dishwater. So this idea that we learn a thing, and then we learn another thing, and then we learn another thing after that, and all of a sudden we have 3 things we now know that we didn't know before. In order to have those 3 things, we ventured down the path, and now we're here. And how we see the world is a different point of view from where we saw it before. Where we saw it before, we had no idea about any of this millions of liters of things. Millions of teeny weeny liters of things over here. We had no idea of that. Now we do. So it's very difficult for us to imagine that all the people who would be picking up this can would not have that same knowledge. So the words they choose, the terms they use, are based on this assumption that we are all this many steps down the path. And we're not. Guaranteed, we're not. And so there's a lot of confusion. Well, for heaven's sakes, everybody knows. No, they don't. No, they don't. Everybody you know does. And even then, probably not. Probably not everybody you know. But everybody you're talking to at work, maybe. And I mean, let's not even get in on the jargon thing that goes on at work, where all of us inside the job create a sub-language that only we understand, right? All of the acronyms and the whatnots that people use. And when I say this, it actually means that in the outside world. It's kind of like a code. And the thing is, technology has given us an opportunity to connect with so many people in so many places across so many continents and artificial boundaries, that the idea, well, good morning, Eddie, the idea of simplifying language, of making it more universal, of making the terms easier to say, okay, if this, then that, it seems like an act of efficiency rather than, wasting our time. So I've been challenged by this legal and financial process of wrapping up the estate of my lovely friend Dave. And the people that I have interacted with, um, if you just picture a bunch of people in whatever it is they wear in their offices looking out at me being held back by people, and I'm waving my arms in the air, and my face is red, and I'm yelling imprecations because what they're saying is either their jargon, which immediately becomes incomprehensible the minute it leaves their office, or they are assuming that I know stuff I can't possibly know. And they are quite confident and calm sitting there watching this woman increasingly go berserk over the frustration that they can't seem to hear me, when I say, okay, what do you mean by that phrase? And then they just come up with another phrase that equally has no objective, tangible meaning. So yesterday, I sent a message, an email, a text, and I said, can you give me an idea of the time it will take to go through this process? Now, if I had said, probably my bad, if I had said in the question, can you give me an estimate, and use minutes, hours, days, weeks, months as your frame of reference to tell me roughly what we're looking at here. If I had asked the question that way, they would probably have answered me that way. So I guess it is my bad. I said, can you give me a clear idea of how long this could possibly take? And the answer I received was, it could take quite some time. Let's go back to that picture of people holding me back, raising my arms and yelling, because this is October, see? And I've been asking questions, and I've been getting answers like that since March. And the law of diminishing returns is in effect here. The longer we do this, the less patience I have, because I am now fairly far down this path of, we're both speaking the same language, are we not? So clearly one of us has a different set of definitions of the terms we are using. And so it inevitably takes 2 or 3 exchanges to get the tangible answer. And the final exchange that I received was, well, we don't like to give a specific number because we aren't in control of all the variables. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I didn't ask for a specific number. That's fair. How about saying it has taken as little as a few days? It has taken as long as 2 months. The average is this. That would be so helpful, because it takes me out of this kind of vague gray place where there is no end in sight. And I'll tell you one thing about human beings: if there's anything we have learned after the pandemic, is that we don't do well in times of uncertainty. Even if the number has to be changed, even if we say, at this moment it looks like 5, we will update you as we learn more. Okay, we can start at 5, and we can count down from 5. And when it comes up to 3 and the person comes back and says, okay, we've had an update, it looks like instead of 5, it's 7. Sorry about that. We're getting the new numbers in. And then they come back a little while later and say, good news, we're back to 5. So we really only have, you see what that does is that brings us into the inside with them. We don't feel like the excluded other who are just left to wander moaning in the mist, right? We feel that we are part of something. We feel that we have some tangible grasp on something. And, yeah, I have containers in my kitchen. I've even used some of them twice. So I can measure a thing in cups, and I can measure a thing in ounces, and I can turn the container around and measure it in a million teeny weeny liters. I can do that. But couldn't we all just use one? See, I grasp that in Canada we're using metric, we're using liters and metric and whatever all that is, and so is Europe, and the U.S. is still using the other. Okay, but could we not in one sentence just use all the same, and then in another thing use all the other? That way we wouldn't have to jump back and forth and back and forth and back and forth in one continuous sentence. Wouldn't that be helpful? I think so. However, they didn't put me in charge of simplifying. So what when I have this great story that I've told a million times, because it's funny, it's true. It puts me in the role of the person who got it wrong. It puts me square in the middle of two worlds colliding with the best of intentions. And I found it really funny. So I'm going to tell you the story. So I briefly lived in Brooklyn, New York. I lived in the area of Brooklyn called Bay Ridge, which was very, very near the location where they shot the movie Saturday Night Fever. And so if you remember all those people and all those accents and all those attitudes and all that, the kind of the guys walking down the street with that kind of thing going on, that was my neighborhood. And excuse me. Okay, we'll see you back. One of our watchers has to go. She'll be back. So I moved there because the place I was living turned out to be a place from hell. And I found this apartment and I could afford it. And it wasn't that terrible a commute into town. And I was working at Playboy magazine. So it's like culture shock twice a day, right? Out of Saturday Night Fever to Playboy. And then from Playboy, Park Avenue to Saturday Night Fever. So one day when I came home, and I took the subway because it's crazy to drive, I had this funky, weird little Jeep, European Jeep. And when I came home, I discovered a bunch of people standing around it because somebody had tried to steal it. And all they had managed to do was break something because they couldn't figure out how anything worked because it was made in Europe and it was, compared to America. And so it was too late in the day and I was tired and I thought I'll deal with it tomorrow. So I went to my apartment, made dinner, and I was making dinner and there's a knock on the door. Dum, dum, dum. And I didn't know anybody. I had really just weeks before I had moved there and got this job. It was all brand new. So it's nobody except maybe the neighbor. So I opened the door and standing on the threshold was a biker of the picture the biker version of biker. Not the cyclist in the spandex with the little teeny helmet and the guy with the colors and the tattoos and the teardrop thing here and the gloves with the no fingers and the stuff. And I said, assuming this was the wrong thing to say, I said, yes. And he said, yeah, I and the boys are going to fix your car. And I said, okay. Okay. He said, so I'm going to need the keys and we'll get it back to you tomorrow. And I said, do you need the registration? And he said, what do I want with the registration? I ain't driving it. It's undrivable. I'm fixing it. I said, my bad. I just assumed that I was never going to see the car again. My bad. So I got the keys and I give them to him. He says, see ya. Okay, slam. lock, 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 lock. The next day, when I came home from work, there were these large men, all dressed like the first one, all standing around my Jeep, all smiling, like very big little boys, all kind of punching each other and that. And I said, hi. And the leader said, yeah, we fixed it. And I said, oh my gosh, really? What was wrong with it? And he said, well, this was, and he's, blah, 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 I have no idea what he said. And he said, yeah, and you don't got to worry about the guy what tried to steal it. And I said, oh, good. Did you call the police? And he said, no. And I said, oh. And he said, yeah, we figured out who it was. He's a local guy. He's a junkie. And I said, and how did you fix it? And he said, well, we broke both his arms at the elbows. And I said, how on earth could you do a thing like that? And he said, it's very simple. You take a short length of pipe, you put it behind. And I said, no, I don't want to know how. I want to know how. And he said, are you listening to you? Till the end of my days, it's not just the question, it's the inflection and the expression. It's a triumvirate. It's a trifecta of asking for clarity and checking for insanity in one simple phrase. Are you listening to you? And I was so stunned by what he had said that I couldn't go and get a better way of asking. He said, look, sometimes you got to get a person's attention. This is true. It's the first rule of marketing. Bonk. Okay, granted, it's a very effective way of getting their attention. That is also a very effective way of getting their attention. And especially during the long, painful months of rehab, and every time it rains, presumably, it's a lesson that keeps on giving. And unfortunately, I latch onto that kind of blunt clarity, as though I am greeting a long lost friend, a long lost relative, a long lost loved one, because clarity is just the best thing ever. The more you can see, the sharper the focus, the shorter your distance from here to where you want to be. The less foggy, muddy, murky, vague, subjective, blah, blah, nothing words, the fewer of those we allow in our vocabulary, the more tangible and substantive and interesting and layered our conversations are, because we're not wasting our time with essentially verbal cheese doodles. We're not filling our heads with a bunch of toxic, messy nothingness. We're saying the thing we wanted to say. And when we say the word slow, and then we pantomime moving slowly, the person who watches slow could think it means old. It could think it means uphill. So there would still be some vagary there, but the chances are pretty good they would get the idea that this is slow moving. This is a speed that I am depicting. So while a picture is worth 1,000 words, this is an interesting study that's been done. A picture is worth 1,000 words. A colored picture is worth 50,000 words. And an animated picture with sound is worth 150,000 times that. When we can see it and hear it and we're in it, we grasp what people mean by the sound we make, that we've all agreed has a common meaning. The problem is this. Let's not cover the problem. The challenge is this. In recent years, in fewer than 50 years, we are coming into contact with and occasionally conflict with people from so many different places for whom meanings are very different. And until we are ready to recognize that and define our terms and listen to the questions we're being asked and try to provide the best, most concise answer, we're going to be wasting a whole lot of time. We're going to be creating a whole lot of missed communications. We're going to trigger a lot of unhappy, angry, frightened, primitive responses that are not necessary in that moment. Somebody said the other day that, and now we have another war. And I thought, yes, yeah, and now we have another war. Why do we have war? We have war because people don't understand each other. Because people who don't understand each other have lost the ability to listen and talk and collaborate and cooperate and compromise and honor their words. We have chosen to opt out. And as a result, we get conflict. And the really sad and unfortunate side effect of that, the collateral damage of that conflict, is toxic trauma that becomes generational. And that is truly, there isn't a word for how terrible that is, because it's unnecessary. It is something that has happened because we got lazy. It is something that has happened because we forgot certain things. It's fair in the time of someone like Christopher Columbus or Eric the Red or Leif the Lucky or Magellan or Thor Heyerdahl, that we could travel a great distance and not realize that what we brought to the new place was stuff from the old place that the new place might not really be compatible with. All over the world, we have brought invasive species. We have brought disease. We have brought all kinds of unimaginable, unfortunate surprises that we had no idea we were sharing. We gradually learned. We learned after we saw the outcome of something that we thought was benign, harmless, nothing. The fact that we can get to places that used to take 80 days, we can get there in fewer than 8 hours, means that we don't have time to get ourselves in step with the new place we're going to be. That's called jet lag in terms of the time difference, but it's a cultural lag as well, and it's an attitude lag, and it's an ability to comprehend lag, because we are out of step with the place we arrive. Right? When you plan to jump off a running horse, what you really should do, if you're not prepared to drop and roll, is to get your feet moving really quickly so that when you hit the ground, you might be at the right speed to not fall over and hurt yourself. Right? Same thing if you jump out of a moving vehicle. And the fact is, we forget that. We just hope we don't hurt ourselves. Okay, well, maybe if we slowed the horse down a little bit, if we could slow the car down a little bit, if we could, we wouldn't hurt ourselves so much. We don't think about these things. Why not? Frankly, Scarlett, I don't know why not. I don't know. It's one of the great mysteries. We have this opportunity to learn to be present, to pay attention, to bring our best self to the table, and we don't. We're distracted. We're maybe doing too many things all at the same time, and we think we got this. So a couple of comments today about this episode. Are you listening to you? It's really important that we start where we are. I believe that in all things. I believe, start where you are, begin with the end in mind. I want to be here by the time I'm done, but don't start like I'm already there. Know that this is where you want to be. Take on the mantle of the person who can own that, but you have to remember where you are. You have to be able to see that this is where I am, this is where I intend to be, this is the person I have chosen to have inside my head and my heart in order to reach that goal. And I just have to remember that where I am, I'm surrounded by people who aren't there yet. And so I need to be able to translate to these people effectively for a couple of reasons. One, so I don't scare them. And two, so that they will be eager to get into the boat with me and join me on the journey. So clarity in all things is one of our best friends. Say what we mean. Watch the expression. You know how many people there are in a conversation? Two. We tell a person something. We can't assume they knew it. If we assume they knew it, why are we telling them? Therefore, we must assume that they don't know it. And if you don't want to offend them, you can say, stop me if you've heard this before, and then proceed to say the thing in a way that we think they might understand. Connect, communicate, compromise, collaborate, cooperate. But it starts with clarity of purpose. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What do I hope it to achieve? What is the end I have in mind? And then say that to somebody. So here's the thing. I know change is hard when we didn't think of it. I've decided to make a change. It's okay, not a big change. This is what I think I want. This is what I'm deciding to do. This is how I'm deciding to do it, when and where and why. Would you care to join me? Would you like an aisle seat? Here's your oar. Everything can be that simple. So this long and laborious process that everyone must go through if they are tasked with taking care of the loose ends and the untied threads when we lose someone. It is always the same. We must go through a process that has been decided as the way we do this. And all the organizations have bought into that decision. We can be rebels all we like. We can say, why can't we shortcut? Why can't we this? Or we can say, how can I make this efficient? What can I bring? And, over the process, I have, develop a plan to achieve your goals. Yeah. We Americans couldn't be bothered to learn the metric system. Freddie, you know what? I'm with you. It's a viewpoint, really. Once America decided to go over there, they basically said, yeah, and we're not interested in that. I get it. However, the world is getting smaller. People have to figure out how to have these conversations. So, you know what? I still go when I go into the grocery store and I want to get some slices of things. I ask for the number of slices. Can I have 10 slices? How thick do you want them? I don't know. Fingernail? So basically shaved. Sure. Okay, whatever. I just want to be able to fold them in a sandwich. Okay, one sandwich? That's 10's a lot. No, I'm going to make several sandwiches over the period of a week, so 10 slices should do it. Okay. I'd see how I avoided grams and millions of tiny liters and pounds and inches and ounces and whatnot. It's all 10. I'll 10 of those. Do we all know what 10 is? Good. And so I try always to simplify. I use humor to pull people away from the toxic fear thing that's going on. I don't understand you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Well, then take your fingers out of your ears and stop yelling. I use the humor to distract and clear the decks and start fresh, new page. Okay, we all laughed. We've all had, that positive endorphin release. Okay, now let's do this. Okay, let's do this. And we can do it together. So the conversation yesterday, with quite some time, when I thought I had specifically said how long, and since everyone in my immediate circle of people I'm talking to realizes that this is very confusing for me and very upsetting for me and very convoluted for me, and why can't we help me understand by giving me clarity instead of more vague subjective terms? Except that I know when I can step far enough back, I know that it's emotional for everybody. I am the only one in my head going through this. Those people, it's their job. Every single person they talk to brings a lot of emotional, toxic, fear-based stuff. And these people who are doing this difficult job are easily overwhelmed, I'm sure. They have to know how to get rid of it so that it just doesn't become a kind of a molasses type soup. And God bless them for showing up every day. And God bless them for having a bad day. And do you need a hug? And if we're not clear, a hug is a metaphor for somebody listening and caring that you're okay. If we take the time to do that, the time it takes to do everything is reduced, and the quality of our currency of communication goes up. It's not devalued. And our collective connection is strengthened. And we feel safe, and we feel valued, and we feel seen and heard when the question we ask is answered. So I think, as I started this episode, and it's, by the way, episode 190. Can you believe it? Isn't that amazing? The question I asked, are you listening to you? I think is the second question. Don't you? I think the first question is, are you listening to them? Are you taking the time to hear what they asked? Are you looking at them to try to understand why they need it? What is wrong? Those are the best words they could come up with. They're new here. I think we all need to remember, I think I said it on Tuesday, none of us ever buys the steak. We all buy the sizzle, right? And our memory of the last sizzle is the filter through which we view this one. If it was a terrifying moment, then the sizzle is a challenge. If it was delicious and fabulous and music was playing and we felt fabulous in the moment, then the sizzle is everything. And I think that's where we need to it's where we need to be. It's where we need to go. It's where we need to be in our heads, in our intention, in our attitude. Our pivotry, our choice to shift our mindset. I want to quote somebody here, a former client of mine, who had come up with a truly brilliant turn of phrase. And it was about addictive behavior and mental health. And his phrase was preemptive abandonment. You think about that. So preemptive is getting ahead of the curve. He who is first on the field can control the enemy. Preemptive strike is a strike before the other guy even picks up the bat. Can you imagine what our lives are like if somewhere in our head we choose to opt out before anyone else can reject us? We choose to give up, to stop trying before we can be told, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. What a sad and sorry way to live. So deep, deep, deep in the heart of my Pivotry in Motion purpose, intention, and focus is to show you where the tools are that bring you back, that give you, I'm walking here. I am listening to me and I am listening to you. How you doing? How you doing? If I can show you where your tools are, and by the way, I can. And if I can show you how you can use them, and by the way, I can. Imagine what your day is going to be like, and your day after that, and your day after that, and every moment in every one of those days. That's my goal with Pivotry in Motion. If we get rid of the seeds that cause the triggers, we have an opportunity to stop yelling, to put down our weapons and say, it's been a while. Did you miss me? And the answer will always be yes. I guarantee it. Cool, right? Amazing. Okay, so I have great news on my end of things, in that it would appear that the clouds are parting and the number of hoops to jump through to get to the end of this convoluted paper financial process thing are now reduced to a number that I can actually count on the fingers of two hands. Very exciting. And it means that every other thing that I have had on hold, on standby, I'm going to be able to say, let's go. Let's get this done. Yeah. I can have all these things that I've had in the works, in waiting, in the assembly line, waiting to push the button to start things going. It's going to happen very soon. And I can't begin to tell you how excited I am. It means that the show I'm going to do, yes, but not with you, is going to happen sooner than later. It means that all the fabulous booklets and books and stories and instructions and examples are going to be available to you. It means that the workshops that I'm going to do, whether they're online, whether they're in small groups, whether they're in person, whether they're one-on-one, we're going to have all of those available. The updates to the website are going to be starting again. They had to come to a halt. Everything is now ready to gear up, and there's really only a few steps left. I can't tell you how fabulous it is. So hang in there. We, I know I keep adding things as I'm trying to say goodbye. There is that Newton's third law. I love the idea that science gives us something solid that explains something we feel, which is real. It's just hard to say here. There it is, you see? Science helps. So Newton's third law, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. How light it is shows you how dark it can be. And every sad, toxic, counterproductive thing that we are still surrounding ourselves with is equaled by the number of amazing, positive, yummy, fabulous things just waiting right there. The other thing I read that I think is brilliant, everybody talks about the law of attraction, okay? This is smarter than that. The law of attraction suggests that if you're in a certain mindset, that will come. Okay, the thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are ready to receive it. The smarter law is the law of resonance. And that's when, you know, those moments when we meet somebody and we're on the same wavelength and we just get each other instantly, kind of look at each other and we're both going, yeah, yeah, yeah. The law of resonance. That is where we need to be, in positivity, not in fear. We need to be looking at opportunities to say, you know what? We got this. We are walking here. All right. Will we have differences with people? Yes, of course. It's the way life is. There always has been conflict, miscommunication. The opportunity in times of conflict is to figure out how to resolve it, not escalate it. That's the goal. So between now and next week, when all kinds of things will be happening, I am sure, I want you to do that thing that is the way we end every one of these videos together. I want you to be good to you. I want you to jettison the habits that you have acquired that attract people to you who are toxic. I want you to pay attention to the things you're saying and the way you're saying them. I want you to listen to you. And I want you to listen to them because they are mirroring you. They are copying you. If they are saying toxic things, they had to learn it somewhere. You can be the one to draw the heart-shaped line in the sand and say, until you change, I will love you from afar. I'm not abandoning you. It's not betrayal. There's no blame, shame, or guilt. But I have recognized that I am not helping myself by behaving this way. And until we can clear the air, I'm just going to put you over there. We have permission to do that. We have. And the people I'm talking to, the people I'm working with who are choosing to believe I could be right and are choosing to take action based on that belief are getting back to me saying, well, how awesome is that? And I'm saying, right? Happiness is ours to own. We have to put down the unhappy stuff so that our hands are free to claim it. That's the choice. That's the permission. And it's up to us. So until I see you next time, do that. Be good to you. Write stuff down. Pat yourself on the back. Reward yourself for getting it right. Reward yourself from stepping back from the things that are just wrong. And remember to hug your loved ones. They deserve it too. And I will see you next time, next week, Tuesday, 10 o'clock. Thank you for watching.